Hey there, woodworkers. Today I'm going to show you how to make a pen. So what you'll need to start with is a pen kit. I have in my shop several different options of click and twist pens. The kit comes with the pen hardware and with a brass tube that we will use to make the pen blank. Okay, so something like that on the inside. The other thing that you need is a pen blank. This could simply be a piece of wood that you cut from the shop. Here today I have a dyed and resin stabilized pen blank, so I've got it's kind of reddish, purplish maple that I'm going to use today. So let's get started. To begin, you'll want to get the correct drill bit and reamer. And for this pen that we're using, this is going to be the Artisan clicker pen. So this shows us that we'll need a 3/8 inch bit. So over here I find my box labeled 3/8 inch drill bit and reamer, and this is what I'm going to use to start my blank. Once I have my correct drill bit, I'm going to load this up into the drill press. Make sure that that drill bit is nice and tight using the chuck key, and make sure to take the chuck key back out. Now I want to use this vise to help hold my pen blank in place. And I'm going to raise my drill press bed just a little bit to get closer to where I'm working. And then I want to check my depth of cut and see how far I'm actually going to be drilling. We want to make sure that we are drilling a deep enough hole that will fit our brass tube that we're using. Okay, if you want, you can mark that center point on your blank. You can also just kind of eyeball and make sure that it's basically in the center. And then we'll pull our guard into place and we'll turn it on. I'm running this at about 800 RPM. I'll put a hand steadying the vise, and then I'm just going to be slowly cutting in about 1/4 of an inch and just letting the weight of my hand do the work. And I'm cleaning it back out as I go. Once you've finished drilling that hole, you do want to just double check with your tube and just make sure that that's going to fit all the way inside, plus a little bit. It should fit even a little bit more deeply than the brass tube, and that will give us a little extra to trim off later. So once we're done here, we want to make sure and take our pen drill bit out and return that back to the box that we got it from so that it's ready for the next person. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to mark and trim the rest of my blank to be just longer than my brass tube. So from the end of with the hole, I'm going to leave myself about 1/16 of an inch excess on this side, and on the other side leave myself about that same amount and draw a little line, and then I'm going to go cut on that line. Okay, I'm going to come to the bandsaw to trim my blank where I've marked my line. Make sure to have your blade guard at the correct height. And this is going to be a careful one-handed cut. I'm just going to hold this part of the blank and try my best to cut right on that line. If you've done it correctly, you should see that hole coming through, and it should be just a bit longer than your overall brass tube. Now we're ready to go prep this for gluing. Okay, now I'm ready to glue my brass tube into my blank. I have this box with thick CA or super glue, and then some accelerator that will help it to cure faster. I also have a scrap piece of wood so that I don't get the glue on my tabletop. And I also need some sandpaper. We use this to scuff up our brass tube. And that helps us to get a better glue contact. So get some scratches all over there. Okay, now we're ready to go. I'm gonna take about a quarter size circle of glue. And I'm going to take my brass tube and just roll that end in the glue. Then I'll come to my blank and I'm going to insert and kind of twist my brass tube so I'm painting the inside of that hole with the super glue. Once I feel like I've got it good on one side, I'm going to pick up just a little bit more glue and do it from the other side as well. Okay, until you feel certain that there is glue everywhere. Now, I'm going to go ahead and push it, and I push my brass tube just inside of the blank there so that there's a little bit of excess blank left on each end. And now I'll take this accelerator, okay, and a couple of sprays on each side is all that you need, and I'm going to set that down and wait for about 5 minutes for that glue to fully cure. After about 5 minutes, then that glue should be cured, and so we're ready to trim our blank, trim the extra bit of material off the ends. So again, I'm using my same box labeled here with a 3/8" reamer. It looks like this. The tip is going to clean any excess glue out from the inside of our brass tube. And then this here is going to trim our material until it's flush with our brass tube. So I'm going to load this up into a drill, a hand drill. Okay. And your drill setting should be on drill, and it should be on speed of 1, and it should be rotating clockwise, the same as if you were going to drive a screw or a drill bit into something. What you'll do now is you'll take your blank and come to a vise, and place it inside, okay? Just snug, you don't want to crush that brass tube. So I want to be careful. If I don't want this, this tip to tear into the actual brass, I just want to clean out any excess glue. So I'm going to start kind of slow until I know that the reamer is in the right spot. A little bit slow, and it's cleaning out some of that glue. Once I feel that I'm in the right spot, then I can go a little faster. I keep the drill running the whole time. You don't need to put it into reverse, okay? And what we've done is we've trimmed until we can see shiny brass. If you can see shiny brass, then that means that you're right up against your brass tube, and that side's done. So I'm gonna flip it over and do the other side. Slow at first, and then fast. That side's done as well. Once you've done that, you can put away your reamer in the same box, and we can return this to the cabinet that we got it from for the next student. Once you've drilled and glued in your brass tube and trimmed the sides so that they're flush to your brass tube, you're ready to put your blank on a mandrel and put it on the lathe. Okay, so I'm going to return this to its spot. I'm going to find the box with my pen. Okay, again, this is the Artisan clicker. And inside, we have a little container that has metal bushings on the inside. So I need that. I also need, I've got a box that's labeled spacers. And in this second drawer, you will need one of these called a mandrel. Let me show you how to load it up. When you come to the lathe, the first thing that you'll need to do is use your knockout rod to take your drive center out. And you can just set that in the tool tray. And you'll leave the spinning tail center in. You'll take your mandrel and we're going to just place it in. And then we will take off this brass fastener. Now you'll notice that this mandrel already has a few of these metal spacers, so we're going to go ahead and leave those on. We'll then take our bushings for our pen. Okay, keep that plastic bit nearby. And what you're going to do with these is this fits into the end of your pen blank. Okay, and then the other one in the other side. And that whole thing slides onto your mandrel. Okay, now you see I need to take off a couple of those spacers because my pen blank's a little longer. So I'm going to remove those. And get this loaded back up. Okay, then I'll attach this brass fastener. And you really want that to be good and tight. Okay, about as tight as you can get it. Okay, now I'll move my tool rest over. And I'm going to bring my entire tailstock. Bring my entire tailstock over to meet it. Tighten up my tailstock. Okay, and then tighten up my quill just a little bit. Okay, putting a little bit of pressure on that mandrel, snug that up. I'm going to bring my tool rest about 1 inch or less, okay, distance. And then depending on the type of tool you're using, then you'll raise or lower your tool rest to be in the correct spot. I'm going to use one of our carbide insert bits, and I'm going to start off with the square bit, and that wants to contact at about center. So you can see I'm even a little bit high there, so I'm going to lower it about like that, okay, where I'm going to be contacting about right in the center. Okay, now we've loaded this up on the lathe and we are okay to start turning. If you need to sharpen your carbide insert, then you can do that before you start. But once it's nice and sharp, we're going to start off by just turning this from square corners down to a cylinder. You can see that over here, I tried doing a straight plunging cut. And over here, I've been doing more of a sweeping cut. You can do either one. Your plunging cut allows you to remove more material faster. Your sweeping cut is a little bit cleaner of a cut, but you can't take off quite as much as fast. So you can turn any way that you want. At some point, you probably ask yourself, when do I stop? What we're going for is we want to match close to our bushings. Our metal bushings are the same size as the pen hardware for our kit. So if you have a pen or a pencil, you can tell that the transition between the different pieces of hardware should be pretty smooth. So right now, I've still got a little bit of a shoulder there that doesn't feel comfortable, and so I want to go a little closer. One way that you can think about it is if you were to take a pen and draw a little circle on the end of your blank on each side, then you want to turn down until you're touching that pencil circle, but you're not supposed to cut through it. So we want our pen blank to be just barely bigger than our bushing size. So I'm going to continue to turn this down. You can see I've left a slight curve in mine, just for looks. I'm getting very close to being the same size as my bushings. So just be careful. Remember that there's the brass tube inside there, and so if you turn too much material off, then you could break through the wood into your brass tube area. So just remember that you can also do a lot of work using sandpaper as well. I'm going to take a couple more passes at this and see if I can get it just a little closer. It feels perfect down here, just a very, very slight transition. I'm still feeling a little heavy here. I'm going to take it down just a little more on this end. Very, very light cut. Okay, that's looking and feeling how I want it to look. Now I'm going to remove my tool rest and I'm going to go get my sandpaper. Here I've got some 220 grit sandpaper, and I cut off myself about 5 or 6 inches, and that's what I'll need. If you've done a nice clean job cutting here, then you can go ahead and start with 220 and move on from there, rather than starting with a lower grit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the lathe on, and then I'm going to kind of pull this sandpaper towards myself in order to sand. And I'm wanting it to look nice and consistent and smooth. To give you an idea, maybe I'll come from this side as well so you can sort of see what's happening. Okay, that's what's going on. I'm gonna flip this around again. Okay, once everything looks good and consistent, here's one little tip. You'll notice that I can see sanding scratches going this way, which makes sense because my piece is spinning currently as I'm sanding it. So before I move on to my next grit, I'm going to turn the lathe off and just sand it by hand in the direction of the wood grain. I do this until I can't see any more circular sanding scratches. Okay, all my sanding scratches now are running with the grain, which is what I want. So now I'm gonna move on to my next grits. On a pen like this, I will probably use 320, 400, 600, and possibly 800 grit sandpaper. This is my 320 grit. $400. As I'm looking at this, I notice a few scratches over here that seem like they're probably made with my 220 grit. So if I really wanted to get those scratches out, I should probably go back to my 220 grit to remove those, or at least back to my 320. But they're minor enough that I think I'm just gonna move forward. Typically, I will sand, like I said, up to 600 or 800, but this 400 is looking pretty good. And for this demonstration, I think that's adequate. So now I'll show you adding finish. We're gonna leave this on the lathe, on the mandrel, to apply our finish. Okay, so from the cabinet over there, this is friction polish. You'll notice that it does separate over time. So when you first get the bottle, you want to shake it a little bit to mix it up. Okay, all that you'll need to apply finish is a clean cotton cloth. So old t-shirts make great finishing rags. And what I'm gonna do is take some of this friction polish and just wet the end of my rag. And for the first coat, I'm just going to spread this on without turning the lathe on yet, and you can really start to see how nice that pen blank is turning out. Now, the reason it's called friction polish is because it will not cure or dry until I add friction and heat. So now I'm going to turn the lathe on, and I'm going to pull back on my t-shirt rag to apply some friction. Go back and forth for about 30 seconds or until you can kind of feel that it has started to dry. Now we want to be certain that this coat is dry before we add another coat. So I'm going to go to a clean spot on my rag and I'm just going to buff that first layer out. Give it a little test feel, and it should feel completely dry. That means that you're ready for the next coat. The next application, I'm just going to move to a new clean spot on my rag. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on my machine and begin my second coat. And again, I'll go back to a clean spot to buff it out. Give it a test feel, and it should feel nice and dry. Now, that was 2 coats. For a good, nice pen, I typically do between 6 and 12 coats. Kind of depends on how patient I am at the time. But you definitely want at least 3 or 4 good coats of the friction polish before you're done. So I'm going to add a few more coats. Give it a test feel. That's looking pretty good. Like I said, typically I'll do a few more coats than that, but 4 coats seems to be adequate for this video demonstration. When you're done sanding and applying finish, please make sure to clean up your lathe area. The sandpaper can go in the garbage and the finish rag can go in the rag disposal container. Okay, now I think that we're ready to assemble our pen. We will loosen and remove the tailstock. You'll use a knockout rod to knock out the mandrel. And I'm going to take off the brass fastener and return my bushings to their labeled plastic container. Set your pen blank to the side while you are cleaning up. Okay, please remember to return your metal bushings to their correct container so that they're ready for the next person to use. And please remember to return the brass fastener to your mandrel and return the mandrel to its drawer as well. So I'm going to return these there, and I'm going to come back with our assembling tips. Okay, you're going to get 2 centers that look like this for assembling. You'll put one of them here in the headstock, and the other will come over here to the tailstock. Now remember, with the tailstock, if you bring the quill all the way in and then keep going, then this just self-ejects, okay? And you can put this down in the tool tray. Okay, at this point, we're gonna need our pen kit. I'm going to dust off this area a little bit, okay? So we're gonna open this up and take our pen parts out carefully. Be sure not to lose any of these parts, especially sometimes there's small screws or things like that. So usually I'll just lay it right on top of the little bag that it came in. Okay, and then on this, I'm going to detach the pen tip from the threaded insert as well. And then here is my pen cartridge. These pen cartridges are kind of standard, typical pen cartridges. So if your pen ever runs out of ink, you can take out the ink cartridge, take it to your local office goods store, and they can help you get replacements for that. When assembling this pen, the first thing that I need to do is decide which of these ends is the tip of the pen and which of these ends is the clip of the pen. And that's totally just based on your look and preference. I think that I'm going to have this end be the tip. So what I'm going to do is take this threaded insert and place it into place, and it won't fit all the way, and that's on purpose. We want to friction fit this into place. So I'm going to tighten down my tailstock. Okay, what I'm going to do is put that threaded insert here on my blank. I'm going to bring it into place, and then I'm going to use the quill to friction fit that into place. So now you can see that the tip there is pressed into place. Now I'm going to do the clip. On this one, it has a little clip piece here and the rest of the clip here. At this point, it may or may not matter, but you can kind of place that clip where you think it will look best lined up with the grain. Now this kit is nice because it gives you a little, this little metal piece that will protect that clicker as we're assembling this. So I don't want to smash my clicker, so I'm going to put that into place and then press this into place as far as I can go. Okay, so now it's just our final assembly. We can put our ink cartridge in. Okay, and then twist on the tip. And give it a little test. Okay, there you have it. That is our finished pen. And there we have it. We have this very nice looking click pen that we turned and created. This makes a really nice project that you can use every day. It makes a wonderful gift, and it's overall just a really fun project to do. Once you've done one pen, it's that much easier to do a second or third or 50th. They're kind of fun to do. And once you get the hang of it, you can turn an entire pen project from start to finish in an hour or less. So that makes it really fun. I'm gonna make sure that I have all my areas cleaned up that I was using, and then I'm gonna go and have fun drawing a picture with my new pen.